Before you hear a single verse, imagine this. A man stands alone at night on a narrow path, surrounded by shadows he cannot name. Every step forward feels uncertain. Every sound behind him feels threatening. His heart races. His mind whispers fear. And yet, somewhere deep within, there is a quiet voice telling him not to run, not to panic, not to give up. That voice is the same one that has carried generations through war, loss, betrayal, and darkness. That voice is the reason Psalm 23 has never faded, never lost power, and never stopped speaking. And the reason it still grips us today is because it is not poetry meant to be admired. It is a survival guide meant to be lived. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. This verse is often quoted softly, almost casually, as if it were a comforting decoration. But when David wrote it, this was not sentimental language. It was a radical declaration of trust. A shepherd in ancient times was not symbolic. He was responsible for life and death. Sheep were helpless, directionless, and constantly in danger. By calling God his shepherd, David was admitting something uncomfortable. I am not in control. And that is the first hook of Psalm 23. The psalm does not begin with strength. It begins with surrender. God never intended us to apply this psalm by becoming stronger alone, but by admitting our weakness and choosing trust over control. I shall not want does not mean you will get everything you desire. It means that when God leads, nothing essential for your soul will ever be missing, even when your circumstances scream otherwise. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. Notice the wording. God does not suggest rest. He makes us lie down. Sheep will not rest unless they feel safe. David is revealing something profound. Rest is not a reward for success. It is a requirement for guidance. Many people today burn out because they believe rest comes after achievement. God reverses that order. He restores before he advances. The green pastures are not luxury. They are sustenance. The still waters are not comfort. They are clarity. God intends this verse to teach us that clarity does not come from speed, noise, or constant striving. It comes from slowing down enough to hear his direction. If you never stop moving, you will never notice that he has been leading you the whole time. He restores my soul. This is not about relaxation. It is about repair. The Hebrew implication here is bringing something back to its original condition. David is saying God does not merely soothe us, he rebuilds us. Trauma, sin, regret, and failure fracture the soul in ways we cannot see. God's intention is not to patch us temporarily, but to restore what was lost. Many people read this verse and think of emotional comfort, but David meant identity restoration. God reminds us who we were before fear renamed us. This verse is an invitation to stop defining yourself by what broke you and start letting God redefine you by what he designed. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. This is one of the most misunderstood lines in the psalm. God does not lead you rightly because you deserve it. He does it because his name is attached to you. That means your life is not just about your happiness. It is about his reputation. The hook here is powerful. Even when you feel lost, God's commitment to his own name ensures he will not abandon you halfway. When you follow God, your life becomes evidence of who he is. The path may be narrow, uncomfortable, and slow, but it is righteous because it leads somewhere eternal, not just somewhere impressive. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. This is where the psalm changes tone, and this is where most people misunderstand God's promise. The valley is not avoided, it is walked through. God never promised a life without darkness. He promised His presence in it. The shadow of death is not death itself. It is the threat, the fear, the anticipation. Shadows cannot harm you, but they can terrify you if you don't understand them. God's intention here is not to remove fear instantly, but to replace it gradually with awareness of His presence. Notice the shift. David stops talking about God and starts talking to Him. Suffering turns theology into relationship. The valley is where belief becomes personal. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. To modern ears, this sounds strange. Rods and staffs are instruments of discipline and direction. The rod protected the sheep from predators. The staff guided them when they wandered. Comfort does not come from absence of correction. It comes from knowing you are protected and guided by someone stronger than you. God's discipline is not rejection. It is evidence of ownership. If He corrects you, it means you belong to Him. That is the comfort. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. This is not a quiet meal. It is a bold declaration. God does not remove the enemies. He removes their power. The table represents provision, dignity, and peace. God intends us to understand that victory is not always silence from opposition. It is confidence in the middle of it. When God feeds you while others watch, it is not to shame them. It is to show you that their presence does not define your worth or your future. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Oil was used for healing, honor, and commissioning. This verse is about abundance that flows from intimacy, not effort. Overflow is not about excess wealth. It is about a life so filled with God's presence that it spills into others. God's intention is not that you barely survive spiritually, but that your life becomes a source of nourishment for those around you. When your cup overflows, it means God has done more in you than you can contain alone. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. The word follow here implies pursuit. God's goodness and mercy chase you even when you run, even when you fail, even when you doubt. This verse is not optimism, it is assurance. God does not wait at the finish line. He walks behind you, cleaning up what you drop, redeeming what you regret, and restoring what you think is lost. And I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. The psalm ends not with a destination, but with belonging. God's ultimate intention is not just guidance in life, but communion beyond it. This verse is not about a building. It is about relationship. To dwell means to remain. David is saying, I am home, not because of where I am, but because of who I am with. Psalm 23 is not a comforting poem for funerals. It is a blueprint for living fearless in an uncertain world. God intends us to apply it not by memorizing it, but by trusting it step by step, valley by valley, shadow by shadow. It reminds us that life is not about avoiding darkness, but about walking through it with a shepherd who never loses a single sheep. And once you truly understand that, you will never read these words the same way again.